Tonight on NBC, Jimmy Fallon and Bozoma St. John host the highly anticipated new competition show.
I hired 10 creatives from all walks of life. They will be battling it out to see who can impress the world's biggest brands.
This is a huge opportunity.
This is the battle for the next big idea.
This is not play.
We're spending millions of dollars.
I'm so excited to embark on this adventure with all of you.
May the best idea win!
On Brand with Jimmy Fallon, series premiere tonight on NBC.
Hey business owners, we know you know the importance of maximizing every dollar. With the Delta SkyMiles Reserve Business American Express card, you can make your expenses work just as hard as you. From afternoon coffee runs to stocking office supplies and even team dinners, you can earn miles on all your business expenses. Plus, you can earn 125,000 bonus miles for a limited time through October 29th. The Delta SkyMiles Reserve Business Card. If you travel, you know. Minimum spending requirements and terms apply. Offer ends October 29th, 2025.
Hello and welcome to Fintech Insider Insights. I'm David Brear, Group CEO here at 11FS. On today's episode, I'm sitting down with a longtime friend of 11FS, Derek White, who is the CEO of Galileo Financial Technologies. Here at 11FS, we talk about changing the fabric of financial services. And it's fair to say that Derek is somebody who really embodies that spirit, having shaped the future of finance from the inside of some of the largest banks across the world, as well as some of the biggest innovators in the tech space as well. Today, what we're going to be doing is learning a little bit more about what Derek's career trajectory was, as well as all of the new exciting things that are happening at Galileo right now. So welcome back to the show, Derek. I mean, it's I was saying beforehand, I can't remember if this is second or third time on the show, but you're no stranger to 11FS and Fintech Insider.
Wow, what a flood of memories to see you again, David. Thank you for having me. Great times we've spent together and seen such evolution of the financial landscape globally, and love what you guys are doing. Keep doing what you're doing and getting the word out. Love it. So thank you for having me again.
No problem at all. And you touched on a few things there about the evolution. We'll get into that in a little bit in the show, because actually, as you say, having seen this from a few different angles now, the change over the last couple of decades, then it's a very different world we operate in than it was back in 2010. You know, so but maybe before we get into that, you joined Galileo, a really interesting time. For all of our international listeners, tell us a little bit more about your role at Galileo and what does Galileo do?
Galileo sits right at the intersection of fintech in the United States and across the Americas. We have over 150 million end users on our platform, with end users being all kinds of humans using and interacting with financial services. They interact largely through, call it 200 brands or companies across three major segments. That being fintech, which is where the origin of the business started, as well as now some major brands, as well as some of the biggest banks across the Americas working with us. And we provide what I've referred, and you know this language, David, what I refer to as the below the glass experience. We enable the glass, the digital user interface, as well as everything you see below the glass. So when a customer taps on the glass and they want to open account, move money, check notifications, they think they just tap the glass and it happens, and we make it happen. We help to help founders create amazing. So founders that have a dream, have an idea, they want to create the next solution for the underbanked. They want to create a solution for Native Americans. They want to create a solution for whoever it might be. We help them take their ideas. Many times they want to design the end user experience themselves, and then we help translate it into an operating product. We help them ship the product. We help them then enable them to run their business using our technology. And it's incredibly rewarding to see how businesses are built, having impact on end users.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing. I guess, you know, and foreshadowing what we're going to talk about later, I know big organizations you've worked in where the inhibitors have been often technological, but you guys are enabling people through technology rather than the technology being the thing that's holding them back. So is that what sort of drew you to this role in the first place? Because that's almost you're scratching your own itch to a certain degree there.
Yeah, absolutely. My entire career has been right at the intersection of humans' interaction with technology and money. And seeing that and having been part of some of the really cool innovations in the end user experience, the ability to take and create a platform and scale a platform from my very own home state of Utah, which was important for me to be able to take a Utah company and to be able to scale it across customers, across products, and across geos, right at the very intersection of what's happening in all of financial services and supporting and enabling some of the biggest fintechs across the United States and the Americas was really attractive. And it's an incredible platform.
Yeah. So, I mean, 2021 was when you joined. I mean, that feels, I feel like I blinked about 20 seconds and here we are in 2025, right? But you joined not long after the SoFi acquisition. I guess for the listeners sort of globally as well, what did that mean for the organization? Because obviously, big companies coming together in that way, strategically, culturally, there's lots of things to work through. So, I mean, it must have been a very busy 4 years of your life.
Yeah, so our business is actually a combination of three amazing businesses. SoFi, that is the B2C business and led by Anthony Noto, an incredible case study in how to build a brand and how to build a B2C financial institution in the United States is incredible. And then Galileo was acquired. It was founded by Clay Wilkes and was a founder-led company for 20 years. And a founder-led company that then sold to SoFi. And fortunately, SoFi's culture is absolutely incredible, and so there's a natural. Yes, there's some changes that come with being a privately held company to then become part of a publicly held company that then secures a banking license. A lot of change, but with that, a lot of incredible excitement, and we've had incredible growth over the past couple of years that has enabled that. And then the third was the acquisition that we made of Technisys out of Buenos Aires. And so that also was a founder-led business, 3 founders, and Miguel Santos was the CEO. And bringing together 3 privately held companies that are now public under the SoFi banner has been an amazing journey, an amazing opportunity to give opportunities for people all over the Americas to experience what it's like to work for one of the hottest fintechs in all the world.
Yeah. And I mean, as you say, the proof is in the pudding in terms of those numbers, right? The growth over the last couple of years has been, truly exceptional. So, I mean, what's the secret sauce there? Like, actually, this is no small task, pulling these businesses together, coordinating all of those efforts, an increasingly complex marketplace for buyers, but being really, it seems really focused on your consumer seems to be the secret sauce here.
Yeah, so much of, I've said it a number of times, I think it was maybe in one of our riff sessions when I brought in a couple of people from one of the companies I was working in. I don't know if you remember, we sat in your office and a couple of us sat and riffed.
Whiteboard went crazy. Yeah, I do remember it.
Yeah, and it's one of those sessions where I've just realized that every business model comes down fundamentally to the monetization of a human decision, whether it's B2B, which is the platform I run today, or whether it's B2C. In a B2B world, it's monetization and understanding who the decision makers are, and the decision makers within a fintech, there's a couple. Decision makers in a big bank, there's a lot more. And so understanding who the decision makers are and how to influence those decisions in order to get to an actual decision is incredibly important, and how we've been able to bring those businesses together to be able to, grow the company. Growth is one of the greatest catalysts for culture of any company. and to experience growth in customers, growth in financials and revenue, growth in shipping product. When you're shipping product regularly, shipping capabilities, and you're seeing those capabilities then adopted by clients that are then adopted by end users, and then you start to see the compounded scale of the platform, dude, that's magic. That's just so exciting to see. And then to see our parent company SoFi doing so well as well on the B2C side is amazing.
Yeah, there's definitely something to that. I completely agree. I think the sort of like you say, jamming around a whiteboard, or that scaled into a business, and that feeling is that momentum that builds around those things is really intoxicating, because it's kind of the fuel that gets everybody out of bed every time something's hard, or it's the things that pull everybody together to resolve a problem. But equally, it's the things that keep, it's self-cleansing, isn't it? You know, I know, again, we talked about this a lot. It's not often just what you're doing, it's the way that you do it that makes it successful. And for me, that starts with leadership, though. So you know, I know you're a very humble guy, but having spoke to a lot of people who have worked with you, then essentially they always work with you. Like, and actually you're a facilitator who makes things happen, rather than a dictator telling people what to do. So, I mean, where did you get that management approach from? Is it from, I always say I've learned more from bad leaders than from good leaders, because you learn what you don't want to be, right? But where have you sort of curated that leadership style?
A lot of it came through a number of sources. My dad has been a big influence in my life, and he was early in his career. He worked closely with a guy by the name of Stephen Covey, who wrote the book 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. So as a kid, I grew up literally, David, at 6 a.m. every morning. We'd wake up, we'd read scripture, and then Dad would give us a positive motivational thought of the day. So from the time I was in 3rd grade, I was literally told and encouraged every morning that the world is your oyster. The world is your opportunity. And one of the most powerful principles I ever learned, both from my dad as well as I've been privileged to be able to work with some of the greatest CEOs and leaders of some of the biggest publicly listed companies, been able to work with some of the most inspirational entrepreneurs. And one thing I learned moving my family around the world was that every day is a new day, and that you can start over every single day. And whether you're a kid in middle school moving from London to Spain and you don't speak the language, you can reinvent yourself. And whether you're working in compliance in a bank, and then all of a sudden there's this innovation division, and oh, you know what? That innovation division might need some compliance people. And then 3, 4, 7 years later, you're leading innovation for that bank. Every day is a new day, and it's incredibly exciting to do that. But one of the things that I love to do as I travel the world is to work with, but when I visit a country, I'll ask our team to gather the rising talent in the organization. I'll have a breakfast or a lunch with them. And you bring in 10 to 12 of this rising talent in the company, and they all come prepared to talk about their business. They've got their numbers. They're ready to talk to the CEO or the executive, and they come in, and you sit down and just have a chat with them. It's my favorite meeting I've ever had. And you simply ask them, I want to talk a little bit about life and leadership. So I want you to ask, let's talk through 3 questions, and we just go around the table. We say, who are you? Where are you from? And what's your magic? The first 2 are pretty simple, but the color that comes out as people share that they're a twin and that they grew up in this remote village and now they live in the city, or whatever it might be, understanding who we are and appreciating how where we came from shapes us, but does not dictate what our future is incredibly powerful for young people to recognize and understand, and unlocking that and seeing that transformation and helping people in their careers unlock that is what excites me, especially at this stage in my career. I love still shipping product in 36 days. I love signing new clients. I love seeing the revenue line growing. I love seeing customer adoption. But what I love seeing is helping people understand who they are, who they aren't, where they're from influences, but doesn't dictate who they will become. But the real exciting part is helping people unlock their magic and understanding what's your magic. What's your magic that makes you different from every other person on the planet? And that's a good thing. So anyway,
Yeah, no,
that
I completely agree with that. We say embrace your weird, and that's a a nice way of saying is like you know embrace being a unique person in that sense, and you've got your own motivations, you've got your own background, but actually they're not disadvantages, they're advantages in that sense. But what I like about that as well, Derek, I mean, I can imagine 5-year-old you, like, this isn't a message about bending the world to your will. It's been bending the world to your work. It's as in, this isn't just because I believe it happens. Like, you've got I've seen firsthand the work ethic that comes with that. It's leading by example rather than leading by dictate again. But I mean, we touched on it a second ago, and you say about Spain, or you've lived in lots of different places. You've had a great overview of the industry for the last 20 plus years. You've worked at places like Barclays and BBVA and US Bank. A lot of these organizations have got US Bank has a very specific purpose. BBVA had a very specific purpose, right? I feel like you are most motivated when you've got that purpose-driven organization to shape to that work, essentially. But what have you seen over that period? Like, what's changed in these 20 years, do you think?
what's interesting is looking at I'll come back to what we've seen, but just as you mentioned, Barclays, BBVA, US Bank, just taking those three examples, one a British bank, one a Spanish bank, with hundreds of years of origin and DNA and culture, and an American bank, and all very different in culture, all very different in perspective, all very different in how that culture and that heritage of where they came from influences, but doesn't determine what they will become. But what I've seen across that experience of essentially 15 years overseas and almost 15 years domestically here in the United States, living, operating businesses, it all comes down to the simplicity of humans' interaction with money and how technology has changed that. And July 6, 1996, I've said it probably too many times, was the day that the internet met financial services. That's when a web form was published underneath an interstitial banner with a double click, and then you filled out a form. And then little did people know, after we did 60,000 accounts on day one, that web form was printed behind the scenes and rekeyed into another system. But we saw 60,000 accounts on day one, and this internet thing is real. And then we built the first internet bank, and to see how the technological changes and the advancements and the super cycles, the waves of technology that come with us. There's the corporate adoption and the cultural corporate adoption of that technology. But it ultimately comes down to the human adoption of that technology and a human decision to adopt that technology that then can be monetized. And the way that has changed from the cycles that we've gone through has been amazing, just to see how customers move from face to face making decisions. And we used to walk into a branch and we'd sit down across from the banker, and we'd displace a lot of our anxiety onto somebody that we trusted, another human. And how does trust carry through in that environment when technology changes the trust cycle? And how that has changed from human to human interactions to now the concept of DIY, doing it by yourself on your phone, and now moving into an AI cycle where decisions are going to be entirely removed. And how does that impact monetization? How does it impact humans' interaction with money? That's the exciting journey we're embarking on right now.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? That somebody doing it for you, to you doing it for yourself, to actually being embedded where you've actually got the problem, and that's kind of the point that we're at in the cycle now, aren't we? It's I love the point on the people part as well. Is, you know, every organization is a people organization. It doesn't really matter what you're creating, doesn't it? And they have choices, particularly when you're talking about that type of cultural change. I mean, it feels to me, whether it was, you know, BBVA, Barclays, or, you know, when you were at Google as well, actually, you've always been in some scale, an organization that's in some scale of large transformation. Is that something you're drawn to? I know definitely I am. I'm always drawn to the ability to help people or help organizations get through to the other side of those things. But it's not the most easy thing to be addicted to, I guess. Right?
Yeah, so I have been fortunate to be part of really big companies with tens and hundreds of thousands of people, and it's incredibly energizing to be able to teach and help people to create the future of their organization and see them develop skill sets as they're actually doing it. But boy, are they very, very, very different companies, as you mentioned. So take the culture of Google as an example. It's publicly communicated and understood that the culture of Google is described as the slime mold that you gather. And how do you take a problem? You throw a couple of engineers at it. You go throw a couple of engineers, and then if it has teeth and it's a big enough challenge that's interesting, they'll get more engineers. And then they really start to build on it. And then they get more engineers. And then the engineers get engineers that then, and product people, and you start to get a full squad of people against this. And then all of a sudden, it's very bottoms up. And how do you manage a $1 trillion company that has been bottoms up culture driven versus a very regulated financial institution? Depending on where they are in the world, that influences even the culture, and the regulation influences the management of the culture within those companies. And how do you drive transformation in a massive company that's regulated? And what I found was that the customer and the human is the great mediator of any internal conflict. And looking at, yes, you've got to hit your financial results. Yes, you got to hit your operating metrics. Yes, you've got to operate in compliance and control, safety and soundness. But ultimately, it's the end customer that's a great mediator of, does the customer want it? Does the customer deserve it? Will the customer use it? Is that where the customer behavior is heading? And understanding that end user, whether it's an employee, whether it's a client on the corporate side, or whether it's an end customer, is all really important. But I will also say, early on in my career, it was much smaller, much more entrepreneurial organizations. And so bringing that energy and excitement of shipping product, of shipping capabilities, and if it's the end customer is point number one, the second part is having an understanding cycle time of big organizations. I don't know what it is now. I used to measure it. It used to take 2.2 years to translate an idea into execution in a large financial institution. Any cycle for a large company that is more than 9 months to ship a product and to have it in market. Now, most fintechs will tell you 9 months is crazy, but really, by the time they actually stand up their business, many of them are around that kind of cycle. So it's understanding cycle times and how cycle times differ from B2C versus B2B businesses is incredibly important in order to drive transformation. Because if you got an idea and you want to drive transformation and you see the trend and you know you need to drive the adoption of the trend into the company, you got to break it down into a cycle that will compound over time, that you're shipping something that lands en las manos de los clientes, in the hands of the customer, in time, that it's not a perpetual multi-year product. But then culturally, internally, what does that do? That means every employee is shipping something every 9 months, and they can say at the end of the year, this is what I did.
And that's an amazing thing, isn't it? Because your point on Google, actually, their biases by having very analytical, very engineering-based things, their culture is to overcome those biases, isn't it? As you say, with a big organization, a large bank with highly regulated, high numbers of customers, high numbers of risk, actually, their bias is towards inertia over change quickly. So finding almost the imbalance and creating some sort of antagonistic pull to that often is what sort of unlocks it, isn't it? But it's why everybody has a different cultural bias. It's why because everybody has different people, and the things that work in Spotify don't necessarily translate through to HSBC, and the ones in HSBC that work don't translate through to Facebook. And I think it goes back to what you said, which is people are at the heart of everything. What motivates them, what demotivates them, what excites them, what gets them skipping out of bed to change the world every day is very, very different, and that's what keeps this interesting, isn't it? People do the weirdest things sometimes. Don't get me wrong, Derek, but equally they are the amazing sort of catalysts for every change in every organization.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's the joy and the fun and the challenge of operating businesses.
Indeed. If only every business was a single person business, but where would be the fun in that? All right, guys, we're going to take a real quick break and we'll be back to you very shortly.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
In today's fast-changing digital world, proving your company is trustworthy isn't just important for growth, it's essential. And that's why Vanta is here. Vanta helps companies of all sizes get compliant fast and stay that way with industry-leading AI, automation, and continuous monitoring. So whether you're a startup tackling your first SOC 2 or ISO 27001 or an enterprise manager vendor risk, Vanta's trust management platform makes it quicker, easier, and more scalable. Vanta also helps you complete security questionnaires up to 5 times faster so you can win bigger deals sooner. The results? According to a recent IDC study, Vanta customers slash over $500,000 a year in costs and are 3 times more productive. Establishing trust isn't optional. Vanta makes it automatic. Visit vanta.com/insider to sign up for a free demo today. That's VANTA.com/insider.
Hey folks, welcome back to Fintech Insider Insights, where I'm in conversation with the Galileo CEO, Derek White. In the first half of the show, we talked through Derek's career so far. In this half, though, we're going to talk a little bit more about what's coming for Galileo and the industry more broadly, because I think those things are, at that scale, Derek, they're pretty much intertwined in terms of actually what you guys are doing sort of shape what the industry are doing in that regard. So I guess what sort of emerging trends are you seeing at the moment? We feel like there's a million things happening, but what really sort of stands out as the changes that you're seeing that actually you guys as Galileo are kind of leading the charge on?
Yeah, obviously the biggest impact megatrends, super cycles that are impacting right now are AI, stablecoin, and crypto. Mainstreaming in the United States is huge, huge. And then quantum and security and fraud around these new advances in technology are all 3 major areas where we're designing the future to be able to enable our clients to build businesses for their customers.
It's interesting, isn't it, when you start talking about, everybody talks about quantum in an isolated sense, but the combination of quantum computing and artificial intelligence, it's just and with everything being, truly cloud, not in we've migrated some data sets here and there, but fundamentally everything is working in that way. I mean, we're operating in a completely different world, aren't we? I think the artificial intelligence one is fascinating. There's so much happening in that space. I mean, I know we've talked about this before, but when things start to hit normal consumers and I think everybody's auntie at this stage knows what ChatGPT is, then it feels like actually, financial services has an even deeper place to play in the advancements around that. Do you think that sort of touches a little bit on your point earlier on where we're talking about trust of engagement with consumers? That's trust from a experiential level, but that's trust at a security level as well, isn't there? So there's lots of opportunities to change the fabric of financial services.
There absolutely is. The impact on every human AI impact on every human interaction, and what used to take 3, 7, 10, 30 interactions can now happen in one. That collapse of interactions into a singular interaction is phenomenal. It's absolutely phenomenal, and it's really exciting to see the light bulbs and the light up of people as they see the impact of how powerful AI can be to help them in their lives, and a powerful tool to guide them and to help them and to be at their service, if you will. And those that are harnessing it at the fastest pace are really seeing the benefit of it, both within companies as well as the aunties, as you said. That's exciting to see. But then, yeah, how that then collapses, if you just look at that interaction collapse, if you will, from 30 to 1 as an example. Trust is built through interactions. And the way trust has been built historically is changing and will continue to dramatically change as we evolve in this adoption of AI as just one example. And then how we protect that, and how, voice, print, and authentication. How do we ensure that customers' money is protected, that it's safe and secure? That's really important as we move forward. As AI creates the ability to do deep fakes in ways that have not been done before. So ensuring that we have the right security around our interactions to build trust. Yeah, that's right at the very heart of it.
Yeah, it's worrying for anybody who's got, I don't know, maybe 1,000 podcasts out there of his voice it's a daily worry of being replicated, or the nefarious reasons that people can use that content for. It's quite terrifying, really. But I guess embedded finance has been a trend that's been around for a little while. But as you say, is really getting to a scale now. When you talk about the scale of customers, I mean, you guys are powering up people like Dave and Monzo. And what do you think is sort of people are still not quite getting about embedded finance? Because when you see organizations that previously would have built their own capability or done things, going to organizations that they trust to use their infrastructure to get to market quicker, that feels like a big change in the industry in terms of where we're at.
Yeah, the big change and it depends on the geography that you're in. What's absolutely essential for any embedded finance, and not to get boring, but it's the license to operate. So I operated a business in China at one point in time, and in China, during the kind of thousand flowers bloom internet cycle, or internet company cycle that they were in, 020, offline to online businesses, there was a huge demand to just that the companies were allowed to create this kind of P2P world. But there were only 27 companies that actually had licenses, and there were about 1,100 companies that were enabling the money movement. Well, overnight, that was shut down. And so having the appropriate licenses to be able to operate, regardless of where you operate in the world, whether it's in Asia, Europe, Africa, or the United States, having that license is important. Built on top of the licenses, then the technology then built on top of that is the end user experience. And how does that end user experience come together, and how's it enabled through through these technologies in a safe and secure way that can be regulated and protected is really, really important.
Yeah, I mean, you touch on that those sort of layers, and I guess I'm always a big believer. You touched on this earlier on with your point around how long does it take to ship, but your infrastructure and the sort of infrastructure around financial services is often the thing that inhibits. But actually, in a technologically enabled world, and using players like yourself, then actually the ability to ship things quickly, that infrastructure looks and feels and produces very different outcomes, doesn't it? It's not no longer is it the 9 months to have the meeting. It's how many months to get the product into the hands of consumers, as you say. So, I mean, how does that feel different? Is it it's less, tech people doing tech stuff. It's more operating model impacting, isn't it?
It's operating model impact, but then the builders are able to build faster, and it's not just engineers anymore. It's the builders are able to build, and business leaders understanding and being able to direct AI are able to actually create and build and ship at a pace that has not existed before. Yeah, it used to be that. I'll never forget, in one of the financial institutions, I think we've shared this before, but one financial institution I worked at once upon a time would sit down, they'd say, these are our top 3 priorities. They'd pick one priority. Okay, here's our top priority. And I remember going into a meeting and they said, can you help us with this? I said, sure. Where are you in the process? Well, we've spent the last 3-6 months giving birth to a PowerPoint. Like you said, 9 months to do a presentation. Well, if it's any level of priority, we use this methodology that I've used it in various companies called the 3-6-9, which is if it's a priority, you should have the equivalent of 3 days to identify or 3 minutes to identify who's the team that needs to be involved in it. 6 minutes, 6 days, 6 weeks, depending on the cycle of your company, to ship your MVP or your proof of concept. And then, or your prototype. And 9 minutes, 9 weeks, 9 days, 9 months at most to ship. But it's all changed. AI's changed who can build, who can create, who can ship. It's changed the pace at which we can create, ship. And it's opening up entirely new opportunities and experience levels of integrating, not just browsing, then clicking, then finding, then buying. It's verbal, all in one collapse of interactions into one experience.
Yeah. It feels like with that and that customer experience changing, actually you get into a world where, banks are, to your point around the financial instrument, banks are defined and designated through their regulatory capability, and the monolithic technologies that are underpinned by those things, and those things get exposed to consumers. But often what we're seeing are the fintechs that are having the biggest impact around the world are the ones that are kind of breaking down those silos. And actually, it was something that you guys did earlier on this year. You did a launching of the co-branded debit card program, which actually then started to expose things that were usually reserved for credit card users, but for debit users, because actually people want those benefits, but they don't always want to use these things. They want to use, so breaking down those barriers feels like it's a big part of this sort of next generation of financial services, doesn't it? It's no longer the big monoliths. It's giving people the capabilities that actually lets almost the consumer consume them in the way that they want to.
Yeah, it's the breaking down and then the reassembly in the new way that the fintechs are doing. They're rebuilding and recreating the financial experience, the financial infrastructure, as you highlighted, to be able to provide end users, their customers, value. And yeah, what we've seen is that as major brands in every company around the world is looking at the value of their customer and how technology and is impacting the loyalty and the trust of their customer, we found that many of these huge brands that everybody knows, that have hundreds of millions of loyal customers and immense data troves on their customers to understand the true unit economics of the loyalty of their customers, they're searching for ways to deepen that loyalty. And as they start to look at deepening that loyalty, you start to get some real nuggets of information that are incredibly powerful. And the most powerful of all, David, for me, one data point is that 30% of people, what we refer to as the point of decision, not the point of purchase, the point of decision, because a consumer walks up and they have to decide instantaneously what instrument they're going to use to buy. When they're on these huge travel and entertainment companies with hundreds of millions of customers, at that point of decision, 30% of them are buying airline tickets. 30% of them are checking into hotels. 30% of them at point of retail are using debit cards. And in the United States, we're a rewards economy. And 30% of those people aren't getting rewards for what they're using at their point of decision for point of purchase. So simply addressing that and identifying that as an area of opportunity where you got mega brands with hundreds of millions of customers using their at the point of decision, 30% of them are not getting the rewards associated with the brands that they love. You just simply bring it together and unit economics that work, and you create solutions that are pretty exciting for the end user.
Yeah. And doing something that brings loyalty to be a holistic thing, not just a mono product piece, then it feels like again, the customer really benefits. I mean, the response to that must have been significant.
It's been remarkable. Yeah. And more to come. More to come. Let's put it that way.
Sounds good. Well, I feel like there's some foreshadowing of product development that's going to come there. We'll get you back on to talk about that more as that develops.
Yeah, I think it's just fair to say the big brands are seeing what Apple and others have done. You know, Google tried Google Pay 4 times. Apple has done well with building loyalty by extending into financial services and from a product company into services. And so as you move into services, what is one of the services that people start to explore? Financial services. And if you've got a big brand with hundreds of millions of customers, there's opportunities to monetize and build loyalty through additional services that are embedded and or connected to your brand.
One thing sort of strikes me, Derek, with your career is, and I always, whenever we chat, I always do ask you, I'm like, where in the world are you now? Because you've always been moving around. I know you're, like, say you're at home now, which is great, and being able to do this in your hometown is a different feel to it. But you've been a tech ambassador for London. You've worked in all over the world for different, like, is the sort of culture of those environments different? Because often, the regulatory capability, the investor climate, the smart people to do things, there's often different variables in different geographies. Have you seen any sort of noticeable difference across it, or are people just people, and it's about how you get the best out of them?
Yeah. Ultimately, people love to be connected. They love to be connected to something, to someone, and each one of us likes varying levels of connectivity. Understanding that at a very human level, each one of us is very, very, very different. David and Derek may share a similar hairline. I can't pull off the beard like you can, brother. But we're different. We're different, and we embrace that, and we recognize that. One of the institutions that I happened to work for, that was a $70 billion market cap institution, happened to have a couple of CEOs that were incredibly different. One was an extreme extrovert, one was an extreme introvert. And what's wonderful to see, regardless of where you are in the world, and yes, there's wonderful, incredible cultural differences across Latin America versus Africa versus Europe and Asia and the United States. And those are, for me, I love to see those wonderful differences. But the one thing that's common is that everybody loves to be connected, and understanding that we're all different and unique is really important. And if we all like to be connected to some kind of purpose, to some at a very human level. That comes from outside of work in connecting in some way to something or some purpose. And then having a connection to purpose at work is really important. But then once there's that connection, and the greater that connection and belief, then it comes down to creating value, creating shipping product, creating capabilities. And that is common. That if there's one thing that the human spirit is constantly seeking is the next thing. And what is that next opportunity? And how do we connect people to be able to capture and create that next opportunity? But boy, you struck a memory by simply mentioning the tech ambassador days with Boris and some of and Boris and Eileen and Saul and Russ and a whole bunch of the people in London. London's a thriving and such an amazing geographical, concise, brilliant connection of people, unlike almost any other place on the planet. With the government, with the tech hubs, with the financial hub, and the educational hubs, all within the geography that's located there. It's a pretty special place, and I loved my 7 years and 2 different stints on the island there.
Well, I'd hate to take you away from your home, but I hope we get to lure you back to London at some point just to see what you think now. But I mean, we get before we wrap up, we get a lot of listeners, big banks around the world. It's a pretty tough gig, like making things happen, staying resilient, making those big transformations happen in banks. I mean, what would be the advice you would give to somebody in one of those roles? How do you stay focused? How do you make a significant impact on a big legacy infrastructure organization?
Number one is understand that it's a publicly listed company and that they have targets and metrics which they will all know are measured on a regular basis. But one of the most powerful things is to look at what are the financial metrics and the non-financial metrics and identify the real metrics that can drive transformation outside of the financials, the non-financials, the strategic metrics. And what are the underlying triggers or the signals that can influence those non-financial metrics that are then multi-layered that will ultimately impact the financial results, and identify what is it that, number one, what the customer wants, the customer and then end human user. What is it that they want? What is it that they need? And how can you ship something to them that's going to be that's going to influence and change the way that they operate? And that can be either you're the client, the customer, or the end employee, depending on where you sit in transformation in the big bank. If you're looking to transform risk, look at it and say, what processes are there that are being done today that could be done by AI? And how can we as a risk and compliance team use AI to transform the way we're driving and managing and controlling the business? And look at not just the team, but look through to the end financials, end to end. Look at the end user, look at the technology like AI that can be brought in to help them, look end to end at what the financial impacts can be.
Yeah. Do you know, I've said, I've been talking I always kind of find talking out loud is how I work most effectively with people, and having conversations and learning by speaking, I think it says more about my ability to type and write than it does about my speaking ability, quite frankly. But I find I've been drawn quite recently to the differences between sort of motivation and discipline, because actually I think many big organizations seek continual motivation when actually what they need is more discipline. And the things that actually you've referred to, the 369, that's setting, like a metronome sets the cadence for an organization, what is expected to be achieved by when. That for me is like the discipline to achieve the outcome, whereas the motivation is just the next hot thing. It's the next exciting thing. It's the next, keynote speech or whatever. But the real magic, as you say, is from shipping. It's from making things happen. It's from impacting the consumer, isn't it? And it's interesting how that shift has happened from, we don't need any more TED Talks. We need the sort of celebrations for the people who make things happen.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Looking at how to best, and my mind's racing with 3 or 4 different thoughts at once here. So I'm in a similar boat with you, David. That the impact of how to best help organizations and people and discipline. What was it? Discipline versus motivation, you said. I think a lot of large institutions want to create an amazing culture and they want to have the right discipline, but sometimes they'll get, especially publicly listed companies, will be crippled with the challenge of meeting their quarterly targets. That sometimes they'll install discipline that doesn't necessarily drive the motivation. And it's the wrong disciplines. And it's the disciplines that create the controls and protect the existing business. But institutionalizing, I was talking with the CEO just this morning, actually, and they're a great company, multi-billion-dollar publicly listed company. And they are great at acquiring companies. They're good at integrating companies, but they're horrible at building product and shipping capability. So to your point of wanting, there's a desire, there's a motivation, there's a desire to create that motivation. But the discipline, finding that magic of the discipline of shipping product organically within institutions and companies, to be able to do that, it's a real challenge because you have to bring together so many factors. But when it happens and you get that machine humming and it is moving from country to country and compounding, and you've got thousands of people creating synchronously and operating in discipline, and the discipline is educating, the educating is motivating because the people feel like they're learning, and then they feel that they're shipping, and then the shipping is turning into adoption, and adoption's turning into financials, and then the financials gives them more money to be able to do more things. Oh, that's magic.
It is.
It's amazing.
Well, I mean, that's motivating in itself right there. But I guess it's for me, it's a that cycle, like you say, it's so intoxicating. I mean, what comes next for Galileo then? I mean, with that and with this machine sort of tinkering of moving these things forwards and listing, like what comes next for you guys? Because I mean, this growth trajectory has been huge. Where do you want to get to next?
Well, a big part of what we do, Galileo, number one, we power SoFi, our parent company, and the wave of new product innovation that's coming through SoFi is pretty exciting in a number of different ways. Two is we're a platform where we serve, as I mentioned, hundreds of millions of end users and clients, and we're looking at capturing ways for them to evolve and build that into our platform. The keys for us are making sure that we're creating a platform that is secure, that is connected, and that is high speed, because that's the future of infrastructure. We are the platform that we want builders to build on and to be able to ship product and ship capabilities that can be monetized and create value for end customers.
Very cool. Very cool. It's going to be amazing to see as it grows more and more. And you've achieved so much in the first 4 and a bit, nearly 4 years. It's going to be amazing to see what you do in the next 4. So I'm afraid we're going to have to wrap up the conversation though, Derek, because I feel like we could go for another 3 hours on one of these topics, but you'll have to come back and talk to us when you've got the next big announcement to come and shout about. But Derek White, where can people learn a little bit more about you? Where can people get in touch?
LinkedIn's probably the best place to hit me up. Derek White.
Yeah. As for me, LinkedIn is where I'm lurking most of these days. So if you want to find us, you can do. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. If you like what you've heard, why not share the episode with a friend, a colleague, whoever you want to, really, at this stage. As always, if you want to join the conversation, you can find us on pretty much every social media channel at this stage. Just search for 11FS or Fintech Insider. Or if you really want to, email us on podcasts@11fs.com. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. Goodbye.
In today's fast-changing digital world, proving your company is trustworthy isn't just important for growth, it's essential. And that's why Vanta is here. Vanta helps companies of all sizes get compliant fast and stay that way with industry-leading AI, automation, and continuous monitoring. So whether you're a startup tackling your first SOC 2 or ISO 27001 or an enterprise manager vendor risk, Vanta's trust management platform makes it quicker, easier, and more scalable. Vanta also helps you complete security questionnaires up to 5 times faster so you can win bigger deals sooner. The results? According to a recent IDC study, Vanta customers slash over $500,000 a year in costs and are 3 times more productive. Establishing trust isn't optional. Vanta makes it automatic. Visit vanta.com/insider to sign up for a free demo today. That's VANTA.com/insider.